Sensational news. Ryan Garcia and Devin Haney have decided to retire. Haney's mental state at risk. Saul Alvarez was no longer respected even in his homeland in Mexico. This was influenced by the fight with Dmitry Bivol. Gervonta Davis is on the verge of greatness and his possible next opponent for this autumn. My dear subscribers, I present to your attention a new format for my edition. I made a selection of the 3 most high-profile news of recent days from the world of boxing and combined them into one video. I hope you enjoy it and appreciate my work. And now about everything in more detail. Please watch until the end, it will be very interesting. 2 American superstars announced their end and suspension of their careers. It's interesting that they had their last fight with each other, and this fight turned out to be fateful. Yes, we are talking about top boxers Ryan Garcia and Devin Haney. They shared the ring in April of this year with the WBC junior welterweight title on the line. But Garcia did not make weight and could not claim the title. However, this did not stop Ryan from winning a sensational victory, since Devin was considered the favorite in this confrontation. Garcia knocked down the unbeaten Haney 3 times and took the victory by decision. The real fun began after the fight, when it became known that Garcia had failed a doping test. At the moment, the issue of his disqualification is being considered, and of course, in this case, the result of the fight with Haney will be annulled. It would seem that everything is working out in Devin's favor. His 0 in the defeat column will be returned to him. The doors to super fights will open for him again. Moreover, the WBC has already appointed a mandatory challenger for the fight with Haney in the person of Sandor Martin, and Eddie Hearn wants to organize a unification fight between Devin and Liam Parrow. But apparently the first defeat in his career seriously affected Devin psychologically, and the American has his own plans which boxing does not fit into. I'm going to take some time, spend some of my money. I will travel the world and I'll be back in 2 years after Ryan's suspension. Then we can fight again, Haney wrote on social media. One loud statement today was not enough, and Garcia followed the example of his opponent. True, Ryan went further. The Pop King of Boxing announced his retirement altogether. I'm officially retired. There is so much corruption. I'm over it. I may do acting or singing, I will still be training, but I'm hurt and done with it and everyone. The sad part is I'm a great boxer and I entertain and knock people out. I'm sad because I love boxing, praying for everyone, and I hope everyone has a great life, Ryan wrote on his social networks. Unlike Haney's statement, Garcia's words have logic in connection with the threat of disqualification. Ryan sincerely considers himself innocent and is even ready to quit boxing because of this. But at the same time, one should be a little skeptical about such statements by Garcia. After all, Ryan really likes to attract attention to himself. He's constantly in the media space, a sort of Conor McGregor from the world of boxing. Remember how many times Notorious ended his social media career? You might lose count, but it was all part of PR. And the situation with Garcia is very similar to Conor's behavior. But hearing Haney announce a leave of absence for 2 years is extremely strange. Devin is only 25 years old. It's time to conquer new heights, get high-profile fights, and with them fabulous fees. Time to write history. But it seems that the difficult fight with Vasily Lomachenko, after which Haney was criticized, as well as the defeat by Garcia, greatly influenced Devin's psychological state. After all, before these two fights, Devin was simply indestructible, taking all the fights powerfully and confidently. Haney is far from the first top boxer to be negatively affected by the experience of his first defeat. One of the most striking examples is Deontay Wilder, who before the arrival of Tyson Fury was a real nightmare of the royal division, but after the defeats by Fury, Deontay never found himself, broke down psychologically, and the career of the Bronze Bomber was particularly over. Of course, the statements of Garcia and Haney shocked me and the entire boxing community. Boxing may lose two of its brightest representatives at once, and this is truly sad news for fans of the sport. Perhaps both just need a break. In the case of Garcia, it will be anyway due to the upcoming disqualification, but I want to believe that both will return to the professional ring. Both are only 25 years old, both have something to prove, and both can give boxing many more exciting fights, including among themselves. And by the way, before their fight, I did a full analysis of this fight. You will find the link in the description. Be sure to watch it. My prediction was completely true. Saul Alvarez is a world boxing superstar. Quite recently, hardly anyone could argue with this thesis. Canelo accepted any challenge. He fought with the best on the planet, and more often than not, the Mexican won by outclassing his opponent. But then there was a fight with Dmitry Bivol, and he completely turned Saul's life around. Since then, Alvarez has been constantly reducing the level of opposition, and there are fewer and fewer bright fights, and the boxer has never won ahead of schedule, which also raises big questions. Canelo is desperate to call out David Benavidez, but instead, the Mexican chooses completely different opponents. The day before, it became known that Cuban William Skull would be Saul's new opponent. And if you look only at the regalia, everything does not look so bad. The boxer has a professional record of 22-0 and is number 1 in their IBF rating, a mandatory contender for this belt. But you need to understand that all of Skull's achievements and exactly with what was listed above. A professional record of 22-0 is understandable. The Cuban fought very often at the start of his career, 5 times a year, and he beat the frankly weak opposition. His track record even included a fight with Ivan Sakic, who at that time had a record of 127. The Cuban, of course, knocked him out. But now the record of the representative of Bosnia and Herzegovina is 148, and it becomes quite difficult to be proud of such a victory, and all the Cubans' recent opponents were not of the highest level. Even with such a low level of opposition, Skull won ahead of schedule only 9 times, and this is far from due to the fact that he easily dismantles his opponents on points. It's just that William does not always have enough knockout power to finish off his opponents. The last early victory of the Cuban happened almost 3 years ago, and then over the course of 4 fights, the matter invariably came to a judge's decision. Now Skull gets the fight of his life, as Canelo is the first big name on his resume. At the same time, it was recently reported that Alvarez may renounce the IBF title in order not to meet with Skull. At that moment, boxing fans began to believe that the Mexican was still ready to give them a holiday, a battle with Benavidez, or a long-awaited rematch with Bivol, but instead everyone will have to watch how Canelo deals with another contender whose status is too far from the top. Unfortunately, Canelo is destroying his superstar status with his own hands, and most importantly, even his competitors begin to criticize the boxer. This is not surprising. Fans are waiting for fights between their favorite and top opponents. Instead, they get casual fights that are more like sparring. Therefore, there is a feeling that the upcoming fight will not generate the greatest interest, and only a loud challenge can save Alvarez's fading career, but Canelo hasn't decided on it yet. Also, in my channel, I did a full analysis before the Canelo vs Munguia fight. Be sure to go and watch. The links are in the description. More recently, one of the brightest stars of world boxing, Gervonta Davis, spectacularly dismantled the strong Frank Martin and brought his professional record to a beautiful 30-0, and at the same time defended the WBA World Lightweight Champion title. Also, especially for you, I left a link in the description to my analysis of this battle, which completely coincided with my expectations. All of Davis' accomplishments are very cool, and it's no coincidence that he is considered a superstar, but there are some questions for him. First, there is the rehydration clause, which directly limits Gervonta's opponents from regaining weight. The boxer is often criticized precisely for these conditions. The second issue is that Davis is not at all seeking unification and is not looking for unification fights with other champions in his division. There was talk about certain battles, but things did not progress further. Now it seems the situation has begun to change, and Gervonta's choice is extremely interesting. The current IBF champion, Vasily Lomachenko. They never had a full-fledged conflict. They practically did not intersect anywhere, but at the same time, from time to time, some barbs were directed towards Davis. Lomachenko first spoke about a possible fight 7 years ago, but his call was ignored. A year later, Vasily already refused the American. 3 years later, Lomachenko injected Gervonta again after Davis defeated Isaac Cruz. Perhaps by the end of the year we will get this fight, and perhaps this confrontation looks more interesting from all sides than a potential fight between Gervonta or Lomachenko and Stevenson. Shakur has been calling out one or the other for a long time, but they ignore him and are not particularly eager to fight him. Davis Lomachenko is a much bigger fight for any audience, both in terms of money and in terms of signage, and even from a sporting point of view. It is very interesting. Hard puncher Gervonta, who cuts down opponents, and top player Lomachenko, who knows how to dismantle opponents of any level. Gervonta did not challenge, but at the press conference he received a bunch of questions about his future opponents: Stevenson, Lomachenko, Ryan Garcia. It doesn't list. Any fight will be bright. Davis promises to kick everyone's ass. And it seems that with Lomachenko it will be the most difficult to implement the idea. That is why such a fight will be interesting to everyone. Lately, Saudi Arabia has been committed to matching the best with the best, and this is having a positive effect on the entire boxing. The fight between Davis and Lomachenko for 2 titles fits perfectly into this concept. For Gervonta, this will be the most important step towards absolute greatness. Stay safe, stay tuned. (22:0) and are not particularly